You're listening to Devils Hockey on the Fan, Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM, WFAN and WFAN FM, New York.
Back here at Prudential Center, no score for the Devils. It would be good if it was no score in the game, but Nashville has struck on a power play goal from Roman Josi at 10:34. Wishful thinking on my part, and they lead 1-0 after one period of play. Devils out shooting Nashville 10-8. Nashville had the only power play in the first period and scored, of course, Josi from Weber and Forsberg at 10:34, and they have the lead after one period of play. Well, we are pleased to be joined by someone who is very familiar to hockey fans, although you may not recognize the name necessarily, but as Sherry and I said during the first period, you certainly recognize his work, and it is a work of art. It is the noted hockey photographer Bruce Bennett, director of photography for Getty Images, was team photographer for the Devils, the Islanders, Rangers, Flyers, a lifetime of hockey photography. And Bruce, thanks very much for spending some time with us.
It's great to be here with you, Matt.
There's a new book out. It's called Hockey's Greatest Photos. The forewords are written by Wayne Gretzky and Marty Brodeur, and it contains, I think it's 246 photos that you pulled from your collection. Tell us a little bit about how this project came together, and folks, pick a copy up wherever you can, because you'll just love looking at it. We'll talk about some of the pictures in a moment.
I've been shopping it around for about 10 or 12 years through book publishers, through agents, and the Hockey News I've been with them for 40 years, and I just kept coming back to them, and finally they said, okay, now the time is right. So I figured I'm halfway through my career, putting in 40 years, let's do it now.
I would like to see you around for the next 40, because hopefully that means I'm around this green earth for another 40 years too. It runs the gamut from black and white to color, from film to digital. How did you decide? There's so many you could have chosen. How did you decide that these were the ones you wanted to go with?
Darts. I threw darts. And, we started with 2 million images that are in my archive. Wow. And I actually went through around 600,000 to whittle it down. And it's tough. It was taking it down to around 8,000, and then the cut from there brought it down to around 220-ish, and then this past season we added about 20. Tough decision. Not easy, but they are some fantastic portraits. I use that term because it's like a work of art, but there are candid photos, there are action photos, there are staged photos, if you will. And as I'm paging through it, the one, and we talked about it during the break, that one of the ones I was struck by is Steve Yzerman, a young Steve Yzerman that you photographed at Nassau Coliseum in January of 1984, looking at Gordie Howe's biography written by Stan Fischler, and then on the facing page, 13 years later, Yzerman hugging the Stanley Cup. And, there was, before we decided to just throw all the photos out there willy-nilly, with the Hockey News, we had talked about separating them maybe by player's position or by theme or by portrait and by action, and old photos, new photos. And there was a section of photos that we had separated called Contrast. And that was a whole section including Brodeur from the time he was drafted to the more current day, and probably about 10 or 12 players, Messier, Gretzky, and all the big ones from the start of their career, and then a photo of them near their end of their careers. And there's a picture of Gretzky as a youngster interviewing Mark Messier and Paul Coffey. There's Marty Brodeur following the first Stanley Cup championship with his dad, Denis, in the dressing room at the Meadowlands. And there's a picture of Marty as a Canadian Olympian, Marty coming out on the ice. From a Devils standpoint, I was taken by the goal, and I'm pointing toward that side of the ice when Adam Henrique scored the game-winning goal in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Rangers and skated toward the Zamboni. And that picture tells so many stories, and you talk about it in another photo where it's the reaction of everyone. It's the elation, it's the disappointment. That's what makes a great photo. That's for me, that really makes it for any sports photographer. When you have the dejection and the jubilation in the same photo, then normally you can you've got a winning formula right there. And the Henrique goal is 50-50. whether he turns towards me and I win, or he turns towards a competitor and they win. And I got lucky on that one.
Well, luck is a residue of design and preparation, but your work, you're here hours before the game, or any game. I mean, you were around the league. It's not that you just make a home here. Getty Images has you going all over North America. But again, that picture, the celebration of the fans in the backdrop, Henrique with that huge smile and look in his eyes that he's just scored what may very well be the greatest goal he'll ever score in his career, racing toward that Zamboni. Dan Girardi, the look of disappointment, Rangers on the ice. It's just a brilliant photo, one of the 246. In our guest Bruce Bennett's book, Hockey's Greatest Photos, the Bruce Bennett collection, forwards by Wayne Gretzky and Marty Brodeur. I just flipped to a Marty Brodeur picture where he's making a save without a helmet at Madison Square Garden in 2008. You and Marty had an interesting relationship. He talks about it. Again, of course, his dad was a photographer. You guys were able to communicate on that level.
The way it shaped up was kind of strange. I mean, when I thought about having Wayne Gretzky doing the forward, well, that was a natural. 5,000 copies of these books are translated into French for that market, and the publisher, who's French Canadian, said, "Do you know any French Canadian athletes who could write the forward?" And I said, "Well, Martin Brodeur. I knew his father very well, and Martin from the time he was a small boy." And he brought quite a different perspective than Wayne brought to the forward. I mean, he could talk about photography and what it's like going with a photographer to a game. I thought what he said was just fascinating. Yeah,
both are very good reads, but they are from different perspectives. I've just flipped to another page. On one side, it's Wendell Clark, who has just been selected by the Toronto Maple Leafs first in the overall draft. That picture of Clark on one side, and then Ilya Kovalchuk, a famous photo, sliding to one knee, celebrating a goal, exultation, smiles on Brian Ralston and Travis Ajak's faces. Pittsburgh skates off dejectedly.
Kovalchuk was great for the celebrations. Devils missed the scoring, but I missed the celebrations.
We missed the goals and the celebrations, right? No doubt about it. Where is this book available? How can some of the listeners pick one up? Best bet really is Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. And the title again, Hockey's Greatest Photos, the Bruce Bennett collection, a terrific coffee book style book with just fantastic photos of hockey stars of past year. Chris Simon with a beautiful lighting, which turned out to be a bit of good fortune. He was blocking the light, but it's just a terrific photo.
I'm a horrible portrait photographer, but it worked out.
Unlike Felix Unger, portrait's a specialty. Bruce, it's good to see you. Long Island kid, done good. And still going for another 40 years, we hope, right?
Thank you, Matt.
Bruce Bennett, great photographer, director of photography for Getty Images, has spent a lot of time around rinks throughout North America, and his work has been culled down to 246 fabulous photos. Hockey's Greatest Photos, the Bruce Bennett collection. Again, forwards by Wayne Gretzky and the great Martin Brodeur, and you will not be disappointed by Bruce's work. Again, you've seen it throughout publications across this continent, but this is a special book indeed. We'll take a short time out here. We will come back, get you ready for the start of the second period.